In Iraq, thousands of dead fish wash up on riverbanks.
Local officials say the wildlife disaster may be linked to drought conditions. More details on this later in the news. Good evening, I am Gianna Llanes.
I am Nina Rich Yelago Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Now for the headlines. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. greenlights the lifting of COVID-19 public health emergency state. Philippines to enter trilateral cooperation with Japan and United States. Taiwan wraps its two-day missile drills amid rising cross-strait tensions. India's Narendra Modi expects Vladimir Putin to attend the SCO summit. And mayors across France hold anti-violence rallies to ease up last week's shooting incident. The Department of Information and Communications Technology, or DICT, reports that more than 60.4% have registered their SIM cards. DICT tallies 101.4 million out of the 168 million known subscribers. Smart Communications leads with 47 million registered users. Globe Telecom follows with 46 million, and Dito Telecommunity with 7 million. In an earlier statement, DICT Secretary Ivan John Uy said they set a minimum target of 70% SIM card registrations by July 25.
The National Weather Agency Pag-asa announces the presence of El Nino in the Pacific. They released the first advisory alerting the possibility of dry spells and drought in various Philippine regions. Pag-asa reports that El Nino will persist until the first quarter of 2024. It shows signs of strengthening in the coming months. Pag-asa predicts that 36 provinces may experience dry spells by the end of 2023. With Camarines Norte and Southern Leyte facing a possible drought. They advise the public to start conserving water. However, Pag-asa points out that western parts of the country may still expect above normal rainfall conditions due to the ongoing monsoon.
Health Secretary Ted Herbosa says the release of an official order is needed to formally announce the lifting of the public health emergency status due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Under Proclamation 922, the state of public health emergency is set to remain until the president removes it. Meanwhile, Octa Research Group records a COVID positivity rate in the National Capital Region lies at 4.99% as of the month of July, or as the month of July enters. According to Dr. Guido David, last June 24, the positivity rate in NCR lies at 6%. Meanwhile, Laguna and Rizal Province positivity rate lowered to 5% and 4.7% respectively, joining areas with low COVID-19 positivity rates in Luzon Island.
The Department of Labor and Employment will decide on wage hike petitions from 4 regions on the following months. Vin Pasqua reports.
The Department of Labor and Employment, or DOLE, Undersecretary Ernesto Bitonio Jr. says that the regional wage boards will conduct public hearings and consultations on the 4 wage hike petitions filed by Regions 3, 4A, 6, and Region 7. The sessions will start from this month of July until September, and the decisions will be released during the said period. Last June 29, the Regional Tripartite Wages and Productivity Board of the National Capital Region approved its petition to raise the private sector workers' daily minimum wage by 40 pesos. Data shows that it will benefit a total of 1.1 million minimum wage earners in Metro Manila. The daily minimum wage increase in NCR will take effect on July 16, where the regular 570 pesos in the non-agricultural sector will be up to 610 pesos. Meanwhile, Agricultural sector workers will receive 573 pesos from its 533 pesos daily minimum wage. Vin Pascua reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The Philippine National Railways, or PNR, says it will halt operations in December this year. This is to give way for the construction of the North-South Commuter Railway, or NSCR project, amounting to 873.6 billion pesos. According to Transport Secretary Jaime Bautista, the said timing will be after December holidays so that the public can still ride the train to and from Divisoria in Manila. PNR previously suspended their trips in the Alabang-Calamba route for the same reasons. Meanwhile, the Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board says it is considering the establishment of bus and jeepney routes during the said suspensions. According to PNR, the 147-kilometer railway project is expected to be completed by 2028. The NSCR will link routes of Clark Airport to Malolos, Bulacan in Calamba, Laguna to Blumentritt in Manila.
The Metro Rail Transit Line 3 refiles a bid to increase fares for the MRT-3 to boost capital for the operation and maintenance of the railway. The MRT-3 management seeks to increase the current boarding fare of 11 pesos to 13.29 pesos, while the fare by distance rate will increase to 1.21 pesos from the present 1 peso per kilometer. If the said petition is approved, MRT-3's minimum fare will be upped from 13 pesos to 16 pesos, while the maximum fare will soar to 34 pesos from 28 pesos. Meanwhile, LRT-1 and LRT-2 will also implement fare hikes starting from August 2. According to the management, the LRT-2 end-to-end travel from Recto to Antipolo Station will cost 178 pesos per passenger.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. praises the Philippine Air Force for their commitment to safeguarding the country's territorial integrity and maritime zones. Madeline Moratillo has the details.
We have contributed in laying the groundwork for the enhancement of our aerial defense capabilities. So on behalf of the Filipino people, I thank you for your service.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. speaks at the Air Force 76th founding anniversary. He gives his thanks and awards outstanding officers during the celebration and highlights the significance of the Air Force maritime air patrol missions amidst geopolitical changes in the region. The president also pledges to strengthen the armed forces, including the Philippine Air Force.
I reiterate that this administration is committed to strengthening the armed forces, including the Philippine Air Force, through the acquisitions under the AFP Modernization Program.
Madeline Villar Moratillo for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Former Defense Chief Delfin Lorenzana says the Philippines and Japan to forge defense ties. Eden Santos tells us more.
According to the Bases Conversion and Development Authority chairman, the alliance may be anchored on something similar to the Visiting Forces Agreement or VFA between the country and the United States. He adds that the strong ties may also give way to establishing an enhanced defense cooperation agreement or EDCA-type partnership with Japan. Former Defense Chief Delfin Lorenzana notes that the VFA-like and EDCA-like cooperation with Japan was a part of his long-term plan during his time as the country's defense chief. He emphasizes the Philippines is now forming a trilateral defense alliance with Japan and the U.S., allowing chances to conduct joint maritime activities. 2 weeks ago, the country's national security advisor met its U.S. and Japan counterparts in Tokyo. The top security officials released a joint statement citing that they confirmed plans to boost trilateral cooperation and trilateral defense and security capabilities. Eden Santos reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Coming up, Russian President Putin to meet leaders Xi and Modi at the SCO summit. Venezuela prepares for its 212th Independence Day. And new EU President Pedro Sanchez receives EU Commissioners College in Madrid. Stay tuned for more stories around the globe when we return.
Public Affairs program. And the star goes to Open for Business Net 25.
It is a signal to the world that we are open for business.
Open for Business with Cesar Vallejos. Every Sunday, 9 p.m.
Magandang araw, 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 magandang araw. Any time of the day, it's super saya, lalo na kung si Ara lagi mong kasama. Magandang araw, magandang araw.
We now welcome you back to Matanang Agila International. Senegal President Macky Sall ended months of tense uncertainty by saying he would not seek a third term next year. Sall said he had sought to prioritize his country's progress. He remained coy about his ambitions, stoking tensions over whether he would use a constitutional revision to argue for a term extension against the country's traditional two-term maximum. On the eve of Sall's nationwide address, his fiercest critic, Ousmane Sonko, had urged the public to oppose him. Deadly clashes erupted last month between Sonko supporters and the security forces, claiming at least 16 lives. The turbulence tarnished Senegal's image as a beacon of stability in West Africa. Sall was first elected in 2012 for a 7-year term and again in 2019 for a 5-year term following a constitutional revision of the presidential tenure. The Constitution stipulates that a president cannot serve more than 2 terms.
Thailand's king has opened parliament after a shock election result. This after a pro-democracy opposition, the Move Forward Party, or MFP, won the largest share of votes in the May 14 election. Their 8-party coalition bloc, including the second-largest party Pheu Thai, falls short of the required majority in the lower house to surpass the non-elected Senate chamber and successfully nominate a prime minister. Accompanied by his wife, Queen Sutida, King Maha Vajiralongkorn reminded the members of the parliament of their duty to represent the people of Thailand.
ประเทศชาติจะมีความเจริญเพียงไรย่อมขึ้นอยู่กับสติปัญญาความสามารถและความสุจริตบริสุทธิ์ของท่านที่จะปฏิบัติหน้าที่ทั้งปวงโดยยึดถือประโยชน์ของประเทศชาติและประชาชนเป็นสิ่งที่มีความสำคัญสูงสุดขออำนวยพรให้การดำเนินงานของรัฐสภาเป็นไปโดยเรียบร้อยสำเร็จผลที่พึงประสงค์ทุกประการทั้งขอให้ทุกท่านมีความสุขความเจริญทุกเมื่อไป
It was the first time the king has opened parliament in its new home. Nominations for the House Speaker position will be submitted on Tuesday. Although there is no set timeline, the House Speaker will select the date when the members of the parliament will vote for their new prime minister.
The International Atomic Energy Agency, or IAEA, Director General Rafael Grossi meets Japanese Foreign Minister Yoshimasa Hayashi in Tokyo, Japan. Grossi will review Tokyo's plans to release treated water from the Fukushima nuclear plant into the sea.
This time, on an important chapter, I will have the honor to deliver this afternoon the assessment, the comprehensive assessment that the agency has been working on for more than 2 years of the plan related to the treated water around the nuclear power plant.
A massive tsunami triggered a nuclear accident in 2011. The cleanup has lasted over a decade, with most radiation-restricted areas now reopened. TEPCO, the nuclear plant's operator, processed the irradiated water in Japan plans to dilute and release the treated water.
日本としてアルプス処理水の海洋放出の安全性について、引き続き科学的根拠に基づき透明性を持って国際社会に丁寧に説明していく考えでございます。
The IAEA has already endorsed the
of the country to remain indoors with temperatures over 35 degrees Celsius. Last month, Beijing suffered a 14-day temperature exceeding 35 degrees.
China announced they would slap export controls on 2 rare metals crucial for the making of semiconductors over security concerns. The Ministry of Commerce and China Customs also released guidelines saying that exports of gallium and germanium will require a license starting from August 1, 2023. The ministry said that the final recipient of the exports and the purpose of gallium and germanium will have to be specified before exports. A 2020 report by the European Commission said China accounted for 80% of global gallium and germanium production. Gallium is used in integrated circuits, LEDs, and photovoltaic panels for solar panels. The European Union considers gallium as a critical raw material for technology. Meanwhile, germanium is essential for optic fibers and infrared camera lenses. Some analysts believe the recent export curbs follow Washington's move to blacklist Chinese companies. But China argues they are merely preserving their security and national interests.
Russian President Vladimir Putin is expected to meet leaders of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, or SCO. Political analysts say Putin's appearance at the SCO virtual summit is crucial, as it is his first appearance in an international event after quashing the Wagner rebellion last month. The participation of Chinese President Xi Jinping also adds immense weight, since Beijing is an ally of Russia. Meanwhile, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi earlier said the summit's primary objective this year is to expand the Eurasian group's influence. Modi stated SCO is the platform that will bring together leaders from diverse nations to discuss issues for collective future. Putin, Xi, Modi, and other SCO leaders will also discuss the inclusion of Iran and Belarus to the bloc. They also aim to tackle key issues of regional security, terrorism, climate change, and digital technology. Analysts believe the summit will secure the direction of Eurasian politics as the SCO continues its goal to combat Western influence in the region.
Indonesian President Joko Widodo met Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese in Sydney to team up on joint production and EV batteries. The meeting resulted to securing an economic cooperation between the two nations through joining the production of EV batteries. Indonesia and Australia are the world's 2 leading thermal coal exporters. However, both are concerned to lean on economic reliance on polluting fossil fuels. The 2 leaders agree that clean energy technologies will become a joint priority of the cooperation. Widodo's government focuses on Indonesia's growth through the increase of electric vehicle production, utilizing the country's vast natural deposits of cobalt and nickel. Meanwhile, Australia supplies almost 50% of the world's lithium, where a majority of which is currently shipped off to be processed in China.
Indonesia dan Australia harus membangun kerjasama ekonomi yang lebih substantif dan strategis melalui pengembangan bersama produksi baterai EV. Yang kedua, terkait perdagangan, sejak berlakunya Indonesia-Australia SEPA, volume perdagangan naik 90%.
UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak hosts Bahrain Crown Prince Salman bin Hamad Al Khalifa in a significant bilateral meeting at Downing Street. They signed a new strategic investment and collaboration partnership, an agreement wherein Bahrain invests £1 billion or about $1.2 billion into the UK. The partnership seeks to promote economic diversification in Bahrain and enhance collaboration in clean technology and manufacturing. They also discussed the situation in Ukraine and notes the necessity of a strong unified stance against Iran's destabilizing activities in the Middle East.
Guatemalan presidential candidate Bernardo Arevalo takes legal action to defend the vote and uphold the election's legitimacy.
Estas acciones las estamos haciendo en defensa del voto, en defensa de los resultados libremente expresados por el pueblo de Guatemala el 25 de junio, en un proceso electoral que ya ha sido categorizado como transparente, limpio, libre de grandes problemas por parte de las misiones de observación internacional y nacionales. Contener los efectos.
The country's highest court ordered the suspension of the validation of the presidential election results. They cite the allegations of irregularities raised by the right-wing parties as the main cause. The parties claim that over 1,000 ballots have been altered. U.S. and the EU criticized the suspension ruling as undemocratic and disrespectful of the clear will of the citizens. The top two candidates in the elections were Sandra Torres and Bernardo Arevalo. The presidential runoff is scheduled for August 20.
Military officers, police, and civilians march at the Paseo Los Poqueres in Caracas ahead of Venezuela's Independence Day. Venezuela will mark its 212th milestone year of the signing of the Act of its independence tomorrow, July 5, 2023. Historians say in the events of July 5, 1811, the first National Constituent Congress formally signed on the independence of Venezuela, ending a two-day talk that started on the 3rd of July that year. Venezuela is the first South American country to sever relations with Spain, establishing the country's first republic.
South American trade bloc Mercosur opens a two-day summit with host Argentina. The bloc calls for an update to a long-paused trade deal with the European Union, which it says was the product of an asymmetrical relationship. Sean Davila has more.
There are low expectations for the summit's ability to give final shape to the pact stalled by EU concerns over environmental protections. This particularly in the Brazilian Amazon. In 2019, after 2 decades of negotiations, Mercosur countries Argentina, Brazil, Paraguay, and Uruguay reached an agreement in principle with the 27-member European Union. The EU has since proposed a side letter to the agreement. It had extra environmental guarantees, and this have rankled South American leaders. Brussels wants any deal with Mercosur nations to include compliance with the commitments made under the 2015 Paris Climate Accords. On Monday, Argentine Foreign Minister Santiago Cafiero said deepening ties between Mercosur and the EU was necessary in an international context of conflict and growing uncertainty. Cafiero says for this to happen, the 2019 draft agreement needed an update as it reflects an unequal effort between asymmetrical blocs. The bloc represents 62% of South America's population and 67% of the continent's gross domestic product. Sean Davila, for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
The Prime Minister of Spain, Pedro Sanchez, received the College of Commissioners of the European Union in Madrid. The President of the Government of Spain said that the EU needs to make changes, take decisions, adopt measures. The President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, stressed that Spain is taking the helm of the presidency of the Council at a decisive moment when efforts to help the world recover must be redoubled. Von der Leyen urges moves to bring Ukraine, Moldova into EU. The Spanish presidency faces the challenge of finalizing the migration and asylum pact. Von der Leyen and Sanchez expressed confidence that the EU will finalize a controversial pact on migration despite lingering differences within the 27-nation group.
And we need to send a very strong message to the industry that Europe is the place to do business. That's our triple purpose. That's what we have been doing with a number of proposals. And that's what we need the Spanish presidency now to fast-track forward.
Earlier this month, EU countries made a breakthrough on asylum law reform, sealing an agreement on a plan to share responsibility for migrants entering Europe without authorization. The two highlighted the importance of a EU-Latin America summit set for July in Brussels and the need to move forward on a trade agreement that was reached between the EU and the Mercosur states.
Es que el gobierno y el pueblo de España van a cumplir con su deber, con nuestro deber. Vamos a actuar como un intermediario imparcial, que es lo que nos corresponde, facilitando acuerdos, coordinando debates constructivos, impulsando todos aquellos expedientes que sigan abiertos con el objetivo de cerrar el mayor número posible antes de que acabe el mes de diciembre.
Up next, Uruguay officers seized 6.5 kilograms of cocaine. Family of slain teenager urges for French police reform. And Ecuador's Amazon gold mining threatens environment. Please don't go away. We've got more stories from around the globe when Matanang Agila International returns.
Kikilalanin natin ang pinakabagong mukha na maghahatid sa atin ng balita dito sa Net25. Sino nga ba si Gianna Lianes? You are the great-granddaughter of the late President Diosdado Macapagal.
Yes, po. We call him our Ingkong, and my mom, who's a writer, actually wrote a book about him.
PWD power couple in Paralympics. Chess gold medalist Jean Lee Nasita and basketball silver medalist Marlon Nasita. Ngayong Miyerkules alas 10:30 ng gabi, dito lang sa Net25. 9 out of 10 cases nadidismiss ng hukuman. It only means this dismal performance, incredible. Hindi nga ako makapaniwala, pero sila mismo nagsasabi. Ibig kong sabihin yan, hindi kayo preparado, hindi nyo pinag-aralan ng mga kaso, at wala kayong coordination doon sa mga pulis na nag-iimbestiga.
In Iraq, thousands of dead fish have washed ashore in the southeastern part of the country. This has prompted an official investigation into the wildlife disaster that officials say may be linked to drought conditions. Rani Bayuga reports.
Thousands of small fish washed up on the banks of the Amsham River in Mahab al-Kabir. It is an area in the Maysan province that borders Iran. The region is home to fabled marshes in the floodplains of the Tigris River, already suffering from the effects of global warming. The state news agency, INA, says Iraq's agricultural ministry announces forming a committee to look into the causes of the fish deaths. Rain-deprived Iraq is ranked by the United Nations as one of the world's 5 countries most impacted by some effects of climate change. It endures blistering summer heat and frequent dust storms. Rain deprivation over the past 4 years, as well as upstream dams, have reduced the flow of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. These are bodies of water where ancient civilizations flourish. Ronnie Bayuga for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Drug enforcement officers confiscate 6.5 kilograms of cocaine in a passenger's luggage at Carrasco International Airport in Uruguay. This is after authorities search every corner of the passenger's suitcase. The drug enforcement officers also seized banknotes worth about 880 euros from the suspect. Authorities say the passenger is set to travel to Madrid. Last May, Uruguayan National Police Anti-Drug Brigade seized 40.6 kilograms of cocaine stuffed in 5 surfboards in Montevideo.
After 6 nights of rioting in France, tensions appear to be easing. The unrest has been driven by the police shooting of a 17-year-old youth at point-blank range last week during a traffic stop. Thomas Likeness has more.
Scenes like this have been commonplace across France as crowds of protesters, mostly young people, vented their anger against police and what they say are discriminatory law enforcement practices that target minorities. Damage in the 6 days of unrest is in the millions of euros. In Paris alone, authorities say 20 million euros worth of damage has been done to the public transport system. The trouble has also claimed the life of a firefighter. He died Sunday night while battling a blaze in an underground car park in Paris. The number of arrests is sharply down. Sunday night, police detained 157 people. That's a substantial drop from the more than 2,000 taken into custody on Friday and Saturday nights. As the new work week began Monday, crowds gathered at town halls in communities for so-called anti-riot gatherings. These counter-demonstrations have been staged to show solidarity with local governments. French President Emmanuel Macron has blamed social media for spreading the unrest, and he says parents should take responsibility for their teenagers. Even though the protests have toned down, thousands of security forces patrolled the streets Monday night, and buses and trams in the Paris region quit running early. For those caught in the crossfire, French regional authorities are getting ready to write checks to business owners to help cover the cost of repairing the damage. But the financial help can do little to repair the tarnished image of France as a tourist destination. One report says a quarter of all hotel bookings in Paris have been cancelled by travelers afraid of the trouble. Thomas Likeness for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
In related news, the family of the teenager who was fatally shot by traffic police is urging an amendment of lethal force laws. They also demand the enhancement of police weapons training. The French Penal Code was modified to expand the use of firearms in 2017 following complaints from officers about escalating violence. This was criticized after 13 deaths at traffic stops in 2022. Despite their circumstance, the teenager's family also calls for an end to the ongoing riots.
Mayors across France hold anti-violence rallies as riots begin to ease in the wake of the shooting incident that occurred last week. In a highly controversial move, French President Emmanuel Macron deployed a significant police presence on the streets, though this has been called a stopgap measure made to address the situation. French President Emmanuel Macron will meet with mayors representing 220 towns nationwide. A car was rammed into the home of the mayor Vincent Jeanbrun of the Paris suburb of Les-Le-Rosey over the weekend, an attack that authorities said could be prosecuted as an attempted homicide. The attack prompted an outpouring of support for local governments. Various concerned groups took to the streets calling for an end to the violence, dubbing the demonstrations as a mobilization of citizens for a return to Republican order. Regional authorities in several areas nationwide announced an emergency support worth tens of millions of euros to repair the public buildings and small businesses affected by the riots. Mayor Vincent Jeanbrun was there to march with them after addressing the public and calling for an end to the violence.
On a été très longtemps une majorité silencieuse qui a regardé faire en se désespérant. Si le drame qu'a subi ma famille permet à ce que cette majorité silencieuse qui est finalement la somme des gens bien, des gens qui veulent pas casser, pas détruire, qui veulent avancer, qui veulent aller de l'avant, qui veulent construire, trouve la force de se dire je vais consacrer maintenant chaque jour une action, juste une action, pour faire en sorte de bâtir une meilleure société, une meilleure république alors j'ai la conviction qu'on peut y arriver. Et si on n'y arrive pas, alors je crains le pire, et tout ça sera arrivé pour rien. Et j'ai peur du monde dans lequel grandiront nos enfants. Mais j'ai encore de l'espoir au moment où je m'exprime devant vous. J'ai de l'espoir et de la force, et c'est notamment le courage de mon épouse, le courage de ma femme, qui me permet d'être là devant vous, et de vous dire une chose simple. On n'est pas battu. On est encore debout. Et on peut encore changer les choses. C'est ce que...
Attention, il y a des... It is so hot in Vietnam right now that rice farmers are getting up in the middle of the night to begin planting. The country is in the midst of a heat wave with daily temperatures exceeding 37 degrees Celsius. The workday for these Vietnamese farmers begins at 3 a.m. Wearing headlamps to light their way, they are desperate to finish planting in these waterlogged fields before the day's brutal heat arrives. The planting is halted about 9 a.m. but resumes for a few hours later in the afternoon and early evening when things cool down again. Night planting is also good for the crops. Rice is sensitive to temperature extremes. The young plants thrive much better when they are planted at night when the water is cooler. The downside is the work takes longer in the dark because it is harder to see. Forecasters are predicting the heat will continue to bake the country for a long stretch.
A popular tourist destination in France is putting a limit on tourism to protect the environment. The island of Breha says the limits will go into effect in the middle of this month. Rosel Ferrier reports.
Off the coast of Brittany in northern France, beginning July 14th, access to the island will be limited to 4,700 people per day. Mayor Olivier Carré says a degrading environment has prompted the limits. As well, merchants have trouble serving large crowds, which at times reached 6,000 people in a day. Last year, the island welcomed nearly 500,000 visitors. The tourism limits have the support of 84% of Briat's permanent residents, according to a town hall survey done last year. The daily limit will remain in place until August 25th. Carré also says in the past, tourist complaints took a jump in the first half of August. That's when the number of visitors peaked. He says fewer tourists on a given day means a better travel experience for visitors. Rosel Ferrier for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Along the Hatunyaku River in the Ecuadorian Amazon, numerous clearings interrupt the thick vegetation. This while bulldozers of gold miners continue to devour the jungle. Jay Suarez has more details.
Excavation activities threaten Ecuadorian communities that live on tourism. This while waiting for the Constitutional Court to rule on an extraordinary protective action. An action by which the indigenous people are trying to stop mining in the province and reduce deforestation. The Ombudsman's office says more than 180 acres were destroyed. Provincial Delegate Andres Rojas says nobody wants to pay $2 or $3 to go and see an illegal mining cemetery. The noise of the machinery and the destruction of the landscape are a nightmare for the inhabitants of Chandea. Chandea is a small community that lives on tourism. Jay Suarez for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Coming right up, influencer Logan Paul fails to refund crypto zoo victims. Find out what happened in the 2023 Wimbledon Open Day 1. And Kim's son hosts thrilling new film The Child to premiere in the Philippines. Catch the latest in business, sports, tech, and entertainment. Mata ng Agila International will be back.
Fake news na rin ba kayo? Naniniwala ako sa national concern na.
itong paglaganap ng fake news. At I'm sure kasama ko sa paniniwalang ito ang espesyal na panauhin natin ngayong gabi, Miss Corina Sanchez Rojas.
Yay!
Magandang gabi, Corina. Ikaw ba, Corina, na-biktima na ba kayo ng fake news?
Check tayo dyan. It's very dangerous because pwede makasira ng buhay eh. Pag hindi totoo, ang tendency mo, hindi mo nalang papansinin. But gone are those days.
Teka.
Right?
Ibig sabihin yan, may mga pinatulang ka. Naniniwala ka ba na malala ang problema natin sa fake news? Mag-reality check tayo.
You know, it should start in legislation. Bumalik ka na kasi.
Ausgezeichnet, wunderbar. Guten Morgen. Hello po. Ako po si Edward Barber. Ngayong Sabado, we will find out kung ano yung mga food trip ko nung nasa Germany pa ako. Samahan niyo ako this Saturday, 11 a.m. sa Lutong Dasa at Net25.
Bakit? Wala tayong sa direction. Ganyan lang gusto ninyo. Ibaba niyo ako sa pinakamalapit na isla. Doon. Ano ba? Hindi. Dito pala mas malapit.
Welcome back to Mata ng Agila International. Crypto YouTuber Stephen Findesen, also known as CoffeeZilla, criticizes influencer Logan Paul for failing to refund buyers of the Crypto Zoo NFT project. Paul promised to pay back $1.8 million to the victims of the crypto game scam in January. However, Findesen says that Paul has been unresponsive to his inquiries about the refund.
It's been 6 months, so here's a follow-up. Logan Paul has not paid back his victims. He hasn't talked about it since he first announced he was going to pay them back. And what's worst of all, he doesn't seem to have a plan in place to refund anyone.
Logan Paul promoted Crypto Zoo in 2021 as a crypto game that offered financial opportunities to players. But Findesen's investigations uncovered the project as a scam. This left buyers unable to access key features, resulting in significant financial losses. In the United Kingdom, London researchers aim to improve the medical care of child amputees that are survivors of wartime explosions. The Imperial College London partners with the non-government organization Save the Children to provide more suitable prostheses that can grow with the child. The team uses a 3D printer for prototyping their designs to reach the final product. According to the London researchers, providing one prosthetic from the start can have quite an impact after 6 months. They believe that there are about 18 million people who have trauma-induced amputations who don't have access to prosthetics. Meanwhile, Professor Anthony Bull notes that the initiative will be useful for those hurt in the Russia-Ukraine conflict.
There are tens of millions of landmines that have been deposited in Ukraine. And so when we talk about conflict injury, we actually talk about conflict and post-conflict injury. And the post-conflict injury are going to be those injuries due to landmines, for example. And there are a greater number of children who receive those injuries because they tend to play and pick things up and play football in the fields where these landmines might be.
Facebook and Instagram owner Meta is launching a new app called Threads to rival Twitter. Stephanie Mayo has the data.
Meta, the owner of Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp, is launching its new app called Threads to rival Elon Musk's Twitter. It is set to go live on Thursday. Described by Meta as a text-based conversation app, Threads features a dashboard that looks identical to Twitter and has similar functions. Threads will be a free service with no restrictions on how many posts a user can view. The app is the latest in the rivalry between Mark Zuckerberg and Musk, with the Meta boss appearing to strike at the most opportune time while Musk is still receiving some backlash. On Saturday, he restricted the number of tweets users could see as he pushes for Twitter's subscription service, Twitter Blue. The Threads app will be linked to Instagram and will allow its users to follow the same accounts. Stephanie Mayo for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
In sports news, LA Angels' Shohei Ohtani has been named the American League Player for June, and find out the winners in Day 1 of the 2023 Wimbledon. Bernadette Manuel has the score.
In Major League Baseball, Los Angeles Angels' Shohei Showtime Ohtani has been named the American League Player of the Month for June. It is the third time Ohtani has received the monthly honor since June and July of 2021. In June, Ohtani batted .394 with a league-leading 15 home runs in 27 games. He also racked up 29 runs batted in, or RBIs, and 4 stolen bases. In this season, meanwhile, he has belted league-leading 31 homers and 68 RBIs. He is expected to reach 58 home runs this season if he continues hitting at the current pace. Ohtani and the Angels hope he can continue his dominance and make the playoffs for the first time since 2014. Now we bounce to the grass courts of London for the Wimbledon. In women's singles, world number 1 Iga Świątek gets into Wimbledon action going with the first round win. The Polish cruised into the second round by defeating China's Zhu Lin in 2 sets, 6-1 and 6-3. Top seed Świątek, who has yet to progress beyond the fourth round at the All England Club, will face either Martina Trevisan of Italy or Spain's Sara Sorribes Tormo for a place in the last 32. Meanwhile, Ukrainian Elina Svitolina made a resounding start with her Wimbledon campaign by securing a straight sets victory over the injured American Venus Williams. Svitolina showcased her resilience and skill with a 6-4, 6-3 win over Williams. Despite the defeat, Williams showed her determination as she battled through her injury. Svitolina will face Belgium's Elise Mertens in the second round. Over to the men's singles, Norway's Casper Ruud found his groove on grass as he passes French qualifier Laurent Locally. Ruud defeated Locally in 4 sets, 6-1, 5-7, 6-4, and 6-3 to reach the Wimbledon second round. The Norwegian will face the British Liam Brodie in the next round of the tournament. And defending champion Novak Djokovic began his title defense with a win over Pedro Cachin in the first round. The Serbian defeated the Argentine Cachin in 3 sets, 6-3, 6-3, and 7-6. Djokovic will face the Australian Jordan Thompson in the second round. With the feat, he is now halfway from pulling off the first calendar Grand Slam since Rod Laver in 1969. Bernadette Manuel for Sports in Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Blackpink has made history in the UK to headline as the first ever major Korean band. The K-pop girl group played at London's BST Hyde Park with an electrifying set to a sold-out crowd of 65,000 fans from across the globe. This K-pop girl group is one of the biggest K-pop bands in the world, fresh from an intense 6-year-long boot camp that includes the members of Blackpink Lisa, Rosé, Jennie, and Jisoo. They have become the most followed K-pop girl group in 2016 on YouTube with their debut single album Whistle, which sold 1 million copies worldwide. Currently, the girl group is in the middle of a world tour and blew the crowd away with their 2 hit songs, Pink Venom and How You Like That. It is not the last time for the K-pop group to be in the UK headlines, and according to the production's chief executive officer, Jim King, he says this genre of music is bound to reach a wider audience and withstand the test of time. South Korean actor Kim Sun-ho's new film is premiering in Philippine theaters tomorrow. Catherine Ortula has the details.
Philippine-based production company Creation Studios announced that The Child will hit the Philippine theaters on July 5. The Child showcases Kim Sun-ho's exceptional acting prowess as he delves into an intense role that captivates viewers from the very first glimpse. The teaser offers a thrilling sneak peek into the film's narrative. Filipinos would once again take the spotlight as Kim Sun-ho leads a movie about a Korean Filipino or Kopi boxer in The Child, as it stars a popular Korean actor and tells a story that is relevant to Filipino audiences.
One highlight of the film is the Mad Chaser, who is played by Kim Sun-ho, who is very famous in the Philippines for his role in Startup and Hometown Cha-Cha-Cha.
The Child is set to hit Philippine theaters on July 5, 2023 and promises to be a must-watch for fans of Kim Sun-ho, action enthusiasts, and movie lovers alike. The Child is exclusively released in the Philippines by Creation Studios, a production company that aims to create content for global audiences.
So we're very, very excited with the kind of partnership we have and more to come for our Filipino audience.
The Child is just one of the many exciting and quality projects Creation Studios has to offer. This Kim Sun-ho thriller is distributed in the country with Glimmer Philippines. The Child first hit South Korean cinemas last June 21.
Continuous release tayo with Korea. Ibig sabihin, mga 2 weeks pa lang pinapalabas sa Korea, pinapalabas na natin dito.
Catherine Ortula reporting for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Movie buffs in Vietnam will have to cross out Barbie from their watch list after the country banned the Hollywood film due to the contested 9-dash line. Christina Aguirre has more details.
Vietnam has banned Greta Gerwig's Barbie movie, initially set for a July 21 release, from domestic distribution due to a scene featuring a map that shows territory in the South China Sea claimed by China. According to the local media in Vietnam, the movie, starring Margot Robbie and Ryan Gosling, includes a scene that features the U-shaped 9-dash line, which represents areas that China has claimed but includes territories that Vietnam considers its continental shelf. It is not the first time Vietnam has banned a movie for the same reason. In 20
While COVID restrictions have become a thing of the past, travel demand has continued.
On to lighter news now. It is one of America's longest holiday weekends, and aside from watching fireworks, millions are hitting the road. Net 25's Anna Cui tells us today how this year's Independence Day travel is about to set a new record.
While COVID restrictions have become a thing of the past, travel demand has continued to rise. This Independence Day weekend travel is projected to set a new record, with over 50 million Americans planning to hit the road, according to AAA. According to the report, consumers are not cutting back on travel this summer despite the limited inventory and higher prices. A new record of 43.2 million people will drive to their destinations this long weekend, an increase of 2.4% compared to 2022 and 4% higher than pre-pandemic record in 2019. And that's probably thanks to gas prices being well below what they were last year. The national average of all U.S. grades gas price currently in June is $3.68 compared to $5.03 during the same time last year, according to government data. In addition, the car rental industry has also improved since the pandemic. Inventory has increased and rental rates are down slightly from 2022. At the same time, despite high ticket prices, AAA also projects air travel to set a new record, stating 4.17 million Americans will fly to their destinations this holiday weekend. That is an increase of 11.2% over 2022 and 6.6% over 2019. Over 3 million people will use other means of transportation to travel, including by bus, cruise, or train over the long weekend, and it's expected to have a 24% increase over last year, but is not expected to surpass pre-pandemic records. According to AAA, July 4th holiday travel this year is a 5-day period from Friday, June 30 to Tuesday, July 4, with Friday being expected to be the busiest day on the roads. Well, whether you plan to drive or fly out for the holiday, be safe and enjoy this July 4th weekend. In Las Vegas, Anna Cui, reporting from Matandang Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Before sending you off tonight, here's a quote from American musician Eddie Van Halen. There are really 3 parts to the creative process. First, there is inspiration, then there is execution, and finally, there is the release.
As somebody who graduated from a creative degree, I agree with the process, but it's hard to be patient with it.
And a lot of people think that for the creative person, it ends with execution, but
Yes,
it doesn't.
it
doesn't.
It
Release, very important.
Something to think about. And that's a wrap for tonight's news. Catch the latest updates on our social media channels. I am Gianna Llanes.
I am Nina Richie Alago Flores. This is Matandang Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.